Okay, so we're going to have a look at another piece of green screen footage. This time this was shot with the Panasonic HVX200, and it's shot to be, the footage is going to be replaced with a sort of darker backdrop. And again, the students who were filming this were allowed to sort of see what the background is going to be. They needed to know that in order to light for that. So I don't want to spend as much time going through how to key out, because there's already another tutorial I've created for that. What you'll notice is, however, when I drop the HVX200 footage, so I want to focus on the footage itself and the differences between keying for this type of background. And you'll see that this is shot in the studio, and the footage looks square. It looks a bit squashed, doesn't really look wide, which is kind of what you're getting over here in this little preview. And the reason for that is actually its pixel aspect ratio. So if I click on the footage, it tells me its resolution right there. You'll notice it's 1440 by 1080 rather than 1920 by 1080. And that is, like I said, the pixel aspect ratio, which is usually reflected in the numbers inside the brackets right next to the resolution. So you'll see it's 1.33. So actually what the camera records is a 1440 by 1080 image, and each pixel is actually stretched. So it's 1.33 across and 1 down. If you think about it, it's not a 1 pixel, it's not square, it's actually slightly rectangular. And that's why we're getting this square image right here. You can adjust for pixel aspect ratio. So the software already knows that actually it's 1.33 to 1, not 1 to 1, even though it's treating as 1 to 1 here, which is why we're seeing 1440 by 1080. You've got a little button here that looks like a square that's being stretched. It's got two little arrows pulling left and right, and that says toggle pixel aspect ratio. So if you press that, it will then stretch those pixels out to what they should actually be. Now, a lot of software does this for you, so you'll probably find like editors like Final Cut Pro and things like that will automatically adjust for the pixel aspect ratio. They know what it is, so they set it up already, so you've never really had to think about it when working with this footage before. Whereas here, the software sort of gives you the choice of how to work. And sometimes, you don't want to stretch those pixels out, because then that can sort of affect the way it looks a little bit, or make it more difficult if you're zooming in and you're trying to work on sort of very precise areas. So you want it sort of looking as crisp as possible. You can stretch it out later. So that's kind of one of the reasons you can switch it off as well, I'd say. So what we're going to do is quickly key this out. Now, this was shot in the studio. You can see there's a light in the side. Again, that doesn't matter because we're going to mask to start off with. We do have a slight issue, which I'll point out though. Notice that actually when our subject stands right at the very back, look how much green is actually on him. Yeah, you can see it's the lights obviously are bouncing off the green backgrounds, and so they're carrying this green hue with them, and that's sort of all appearing on our subject. So I mean, as soon as we try to key out the green, guess what, we're going to lose a bit of him too. So we'll see if we can just fix that with a screen map. Now I'm going to draw a mask, but actually rather than starting there, I'm going to go here instead when he's right at sort of the biggest in frame, so we can, there we go. And again, so we can get the shape right, because he's going to be smaller than this at every other point anyway. What I would say is, again, notice it's quite wide. My shape isn't really fitting around him perfectly, doesn't need to. Okay, and then if we sort of, no, you can see he's stepped out slightly. So again, we've got to just adjust that. In fact, let's see if we can just sort it out by adjusting it from the bottom only. Okay, so again, like I said, play it through. Just double check your subject doesn't, ooh, looks like his elbow just disappears there. So you've just got to pull that back as well. Okay, the once he's there, that's fine. Now what you'll find is, obviously there's a bit where it looks like it was recorded, because our subject's sort of stepping back, so it was kind of started recording before I guess we were really ready to go, which is kind of what you'd expect anyway. You'd have this additional footage. Now if it was coming from an editor, so like Final Cut Pro or something, this might have already have been cut, and we just get the footage as just the parts we need. However, obviously we've got the whole clip here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just shorten it up in here. Now I would just say that After Effects isn't really an editor. While it has the ability to edit footage just like an editor does, it's not its primary function, so it doesn't do as great a job. Well, not that it doesn't do a great job, you wouldn't notice a difference between one cut and another, but it's more difficult in here. What we have though is in our timeline down here, we've got what's known as a work area bar, this little grey bar that runs along the top. Beware, there's another one above it, which is like the zoom in bar. So when you sort of pull that in or pull it back, you can see you're zooming in or out. No, this one right here I'm talking about, that's your work area bar. You'll notice that actually you can change its length, and what that means is if you're doing like a RAM preview, it will only RAM preview what's in the work area. So a lot of times you can shorten it by grabbing these little yellow handles and say, I just want to see that bit. And now if I press RAM preview, you can see it's only playing that section and nothing else. So, you know, it very quickly allows you to do that. You can also just drag the bar around to where you want. But I was going to say, what that also means I can do is, because our subject is sort of getting into place, looks like, there you go, so he starts about there. In fact, that's fine. So the bit I've selected, that's the only bit I want to work on. I don't need the bit before he's just getting into place. Now, I could just leave it like that, I guess. You can even render out only what's in the work area bar, so when you're finished you only export what's in the work area, but really I just want to work on that here. So I'm going to right click the work area bar, and you can see it gives me an option which says trim comp to work area. So I'm going to press that, and now it's removed everything else, so the whole comp here is only the length of what was inside the work area, so that makes it a little bit easier. So like I said, let's go with the key light first. Okay, and let's drop that on. So we've done this already. There's already an explanation on a previous video, but you can see as soon as I've removed him, you can see the checker board background through him, and like I said, we know why, because there's a lot of green reflecting in him. So when I go to my screen matte view, again, then I go to my screen matte settings, you can see he's got a lot of semi-transparent areas, so in other words grays, and we've got a lot of grays here too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to bring that clip white setting down, and now really you want to bring it down as little as possible, and here you can see I'm having to actually do it quite a lot, which isn't great, because that can cause problems with the key. Fortunately clip black's working a little bit better. It's not perfect, but it'll do, I guess. Here I would probably need to tweak it a bit more. In fact, I would probably animate the matte to be a lot closer to the subject at the start, and then as it moves along, so just like rotoscoping, make it increase in size. So I'm working with less of the screen, because you can see there's a little bit there, a little white dot, which isn't really going to work by raising the clip black, because it's going to have to go too high. So animate the matte instead, draw a really close mask, and then just have it enlarge as the subject walks towards the screen. That would work a lot better. So there are other options as well in order to fix that. But we'll go back to our final footage. There's our subject, and he's walking towards the camera, and then he stops. What I'm also going to do is just go to, there we go, screen shrink and grow. I'm just going to reduce it slightly, and I'm just going to add a little bit of softness to it as well. Oops, my softness seems to have disappeared. There we go. Oh, what am I doing? 1. Sorry, I was doing a -1. What am I doing? Right. So we've got our subject there. Now let's go to a project, and let's grab that backdrop and drop it in behind him. Okay, so this is what we've got. So what makes this tutorial any different from the one another one I've put up where there's a green screen removal? Because right now it's doing the same thing. So we're going to have a look at just trying to match him in a little bit better to the background. I will say, obviously, what you can do as well is, what's nice is once you've got your green screen footage, in fact, we'll just lock that background up. You can reposition your subject to be anywhere you like. So you want him central, you want him to come down center of the alleyway, we can quite easily do that as well. So that's quite nice. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to try to match the lighting a little bit better. So you can see it's quite a harsh blue light there, whereas here it looks a little bit warmer. So I'm going to use curves. So I'm going to take curves and drop them onto the footage. And you may have used curves before, because they're as a method of changing brightness and color information. They're used in a lot of different pieces of software. So editors generally use curves. Color correction software uses curves. Photoshop, things like that. They all have the ability to use curves to adjust color and light information. So you'll notice the channel it's affecting is the RGB. So when you're affecting the RGB channel, you're basically affecting the luminance when you're affecting all three at the same time. What you've got, again, looking at it, I guess, as a scale of 100 to 0. 0 is your black values, your darkest values at the bottom. 100 is the brightest values at the very top. And then you've got like your 75, 50, and 25, so your kind of grays. So that means if I start to adjust this curve at the top, what I'm actually going to do is start to affect the brighter parts of the picture. And because we've lit our subject up from one side, so you can see here, left of frame, he's got a lot of light, and on the right of frame, he hasn't. That means straight away, looking at the curves, I know if I start to adjust the curves from the top, I'll adjust the lighting on the left of his face, and if I adjust it from the bottom, I'll change the lighting on the right hand side of his face. So that's quite nice that we've got that control. And if you have a look at that, if I just start to raise this, you'll see it starts to get, while it does move over obviously to the left, because there's a, in fact if I click there as well, every time you click on the curved line, by the way, you create a point. So I'll pull that down so it doesn't move up as much. And you'll notice as we pull up and down, you can see it's really affecting the left hand side of his body, whereas if we, let's just drop that back to where it was, if we start to then drop this down, so we're making it darker, you'll see it's really starting from the right hand side, and if we raise it up, it's brightening up from the right hand side. So like I said, that's because the right hand side is a darker area, so that's reflected here. So let's just reset that for a second. So that's really what I want to do. Let's make it a little bit darker, I think, as a space. So there we go. Okay, yeah, I was just going to say, I just wanted to pull it down a little bit, not too much, maybe here too. Just start to darken it up a little bit as a space. However, we don't just have to work with the luminance. You'll see if you drop that down, you can even work with the red, green and blue properties, as well as adjusting alpha properties too. So actually, because that light has quite a blue tone to it, I'll click blue, and again I could bring it up, and I might just bring it up in the mids so it kind of affects it everywhere, and you'll see that what'll happen is start to turn more blue. Obviously pull it too much, you'll go purple. One of the reasons for that is obviously the other colors as well, so you can play with the red channel to change that, because it's the reds and the blues together that will sort of generate a purple. Pull the red down, he'll start to move more towards a sort of a green instead, so you can kind of affect that as well. But actually no, let's stop here. So let's just do it on those bits there. So like I said, I'm just trying to add a bit of a blue tone. Okay, nothing major. In fact, like I said, if I wanted to, could go into the reds, maybe just pull that down a little bit as well. Okay. Now, again, I can play with this till I'm sort of happy with it. Problem I've got now is, okay, he's got a blue tone, but as he goes back, he's always sort of carrying that little bit of blue. And you can see that the lights, even the little lens flare, everything's sort of gone blue now. Problem is, it's kind of more greeny, kind of, it's a warmer light, I guess, from the back. Well, what's nice with the curves as well is, in fact, let's say, I don't know, about here we want it to be that kind of blue tone, is you've got a little stopwatch icon, which is for keyframing. So if I press that on now, it will automatically add a keyframe at that point in time to say this is the way the curves look. And it doesn't matter where I go to, whether I'm on green or anything else, you'll notice RGB stopwatch icon is pressed down, so it's recording this information for everything. So at this point in time, what we've set up is what we'll have from this point onwards. So if I then pull it back a bit, perhaps, I can then say, actually, no, I want it to maybe be a little bit warmer. I might even want it to be, sorry, I'm going brighter there. I'm affecting the brightness, not the warmth. So if I go reds, maybe start to pull those up just a little bit. Let's pull that blue back down. Okay, so we lose that. There you go. So we're getting a more greenish kind of finish now, sort of what matches that part. So he sort of starts off with that color, and as he walks in here, it starts to turn more blue. So we can even keyframe the colors so they match the space that he's walking through. Yeah, I'd suggest you give that a try, because curves are quite a powerful tool. And like I said, if you know, if you can pick out separate parts of a video image based on bright and dark areas, then you can, like I said, even target specific parts. So we can target the left hand side or the right hand side of our subject here just through curves. So like I said, it is quite a powerful tool, and I'd suggest you have a play with it. Okay.